Pleasure to speak to you.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
Great. Where am I speaking to you today? Where are you?
I'm in Florida right now at home, and in my office, so to say. But the headquarters of the band is actually in Nashville, where I used to live for the last 25 years. So, and we're still, that's where we record, that's where we rehearse, and all that.
Brilliant. And how are things with you in terms of all the craziness in the world? How are things in Florida?
Oh my God. Where do you want to begin? It's just nuts, man. It's just, I don't know. Unprecedented times and unprecedented craziness.
Indeed.
You might know that we wrote an album called The Rise of Chaos a few years ago, and it still would be quite valid today, I guess, that statement, huh? It's getting crazier and crazier.
Yeah, sure. Great. Well, thank you, as I said, for your time. I've got a few questions for you.
Yes, please. Mm-hmm.
Not all about the pandemic, you'll be glad to know. I'm sure you're fed up of asking about them, but
a little bit. That's all we talk about nowadays, it seems like. Yeah.
Well, I don't want to talk about that, but I wanted to start with some old stuff, if that's okay. So I was listening yesterday, back to the first album you did, the self-titled debut back in 1979, and I was struck at the time, I hadn't listened to it for a long time, about the use of harmonies on the album. Songs such as Take Him in My Heart, which is an old song. There was quite a big Scorpions style influence on there. Were they one of the big bands that influenced you when you were starting out?
Scorpions, really? That surprises me a little bit. No, I don't think the Scorpions were ever much of an influence.
Okay.
I mean, you can't help the fact. I mean, everything influences everything, but nothing that we did consciously. I mean, they've always been a band we looked up to because they were super successful and sort of the first band out of Germany to have international success. But in terms of music, we were more influenced by Deep Purple and Judas Priest. And I mean, that very first album is actually an odd one because it's got a lot of stuff that was collected by over the years during rehearsals by different band members. And when I came into the band, a bunch of these songs had already been in existence and nobody quite knew where they were coming from. So it's a mixed bag of ideas and styles on that album, really.
Yeah, sure. Okay. So it came out, I was looking at it thinking, 41 years ago, which is quite frightening in some respects.
No kidding. Yeah, it sounds scary, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Can you remember how you felt back then when that first album came out, what your aspirations were at the time?
Well, I remember listening to, I remember the day we heard that our song, which was Lady Lou, the single that we had, Lady Lou. Yeah. I mean, what's that all? I mean, that title is all about. I have no idea. But in any case, we were thinking, there's our first single, and maybe by pure luck, we're going to be, famous overnight or something, who knows, There was almost like playing the lottery. We could be famous, soon, and we could be rich and super successful. But anyhow, we were all listening to that song on the radio, and I had the sinking feeling when I listened to it on the radio. I thought, well, maybe it's not going to be that smash hit that we were all hoping for because, reality sets in at that point. But and nevertheless, we were super excited that it's on the radio. But I guess when you hear it back to back with some real hits or some successful songs, you have the sinking feeling that maybe it wasn't meant to be.
Sure. So I was reading about the challenges of recording Too Mean to Die and the fact that you had to obviously rely on modern technology to get stuff back and forth to Andy Sneap and that kind of thing when you were recording. Is there stuff that you learnt in those early days that you still apply to the recording methods now? Obviously the technology is different, but do you still think, this is how we've always done it and that's always served us well?
From those very early days, there's very little that I would still think is valid today. My God, everything has really changed.
Yeah.
The way we play and record stuff together, the way we write. I mean, those very first albums, we were so unexperienced. We had no idea. And it was so different how we recorded back then altogether, and under immense time pressure, and you didn't have the luxury that you have today to really make sure it's what you're as good as you can get it. I mean, it was completely different, the recording process. So I don't think there's anything, only the realization that a good song kind of records itself. I mean, once the song is good, everything else is easy, but it's just when the song maybe isn't quite there yet, then it's going to be hard work to make it, and you can't polish a turd, as I say, it's just
sure.
But on the other hand too, once the song is really well rounded and good, it almost doesn't matter how you record it, it's always going to be good.
Sure.
So it's all about the song.
And I was thinking about your catalog, because a lot of the music that you wrote, certainly from Restless and Wild onwards, it would actually still be as valid today in terms of a modern, fresh sounding song as some of the stuff that you have actually written now. I was wondering on the new album, which I've been lucky enough to have an advanced copy, and I've been listening to it relentlessly. It's what I would call a classic accept album in terms of the songs, the style, the hooks are there, the melody, the guitars, and the sing-along choruses. You're the main writer, or you always have been one of the main writers in the band. Do you have a kind of blueprint for how you draft your songs and how you create them, or do they just come naturally?
Yeah, there's not really a recipe other than the fact that you have your personal taste, obviously. So when I start listening, when I sit down and write the first riffs, obviously that's my taste that dictates what I like and what I don't like.
Yeah.
But other than that, I don't really I try to not have a formula, at least. I'm sure maybe people think we have one, and I guess every band has a certain way they write songs, but I try to be somewhat as spontaneous as I can be, and to write stuff that feels good without thinking too much about it. Especially when I do guitar work and solos and stuff, I try to play from the gut a lot of times, and when I start writing these songs, a lot of times I just basically jam to myself without thinking too much about it, because you can fall into this trap of analyzing every nuance that you do right away, and I try to not do that initially, just sort of let it flow basically, and then analyze it later.
Cool. Yeah. So let's have a talk about the new album. I think the title track, if I read properly, is a bit of a middle finger to the coronavirus, but there's also quite a lot of statements about society on there, which is something you always have a selection of on the album. I was listening to Overnight Sensation earlier on and wondering, did you ever in your wildest dreams think you'd have the line Kardashian in one of your songs?
No, I didn't. I think Mark has done a brilliant job writing these lyrics. A lot of times we just give Mark a basic impulse or a saying. In this case, it was Overnight Sensation. And I thought, maybe we could write it about, or I had the idea about writing a song about, these YouTube kids. And my first attempt was actually called YouTube Kids. It just never panned out to be something that we all thought worked out. And then it turned into Overnight Sensation, basically saying the same thing, that there's a generation of kids out now that, that all want to be famous overnight, and nobody is really willing to put in days or years of practice into anything. It's like just a new generation, and I thought it was an interesting topic to write a song about, and Mark's done a brilliant job and ran with it, and he came up with that line of the Kardashians. I thought it was quite nice.
Yeah, it really resonates very, very easily. It's the lyrics are quite straightforward, but you really get the message quite easily on them. Symphony of Pain is another track on the album, which is something that you always kind of do with a little bit of the kind of classical edge to it, which I know is one of your big loves, the classical style. Is that something that you kind of always want to try and get a little bit in? Because Accept have always had that little bit of classical edge, and that's obviously down to a lot of your influences.
Yeah. Well, you said it earlier. I'm now the only surviving dinosaur of the original lineup, and I'm obviously one of the main writers, and I've always been into classical music. And yeah, I mean, when it works, you can't force this stuff into it. But I thought about this whole, I just, as that song started with just the idea, Symphony of Pain. I kind of like the word for some reason. It sounded cool to me, Symphony of Pain. But I had no idea what it would be about. And then I thought, well, if it's a symphony, then it might as well have some classical elements if we're talking about a symphony. So what is the most famous symphony? It's da 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 da, Beethoven's Fifth. And what is it all about? It's about Beethoven. So one thing leads to another, and all of a sudden we have this song that's now talking about Beethoven's struggle with his deafness. And of course, we're using a few elements of Beethoven himself in that song. So yeah, I mean, I don't always do these things. There's a few albums where we don't have it because when you can't force it. If it happens, it happens. But when it doesn't, then better leave it away.
Sure. And
it's always fun, you know.
Absolutely, and it always comes across great, especially live. And I'm assuming now, obviously, with the other thing, one of the other questions is around the fact you've now got Philip, so you've got 3 guitarists in the band. So that leaves me very excited about when we finally get to see you play live again. But what's the reasoning behind adding a 3rd guitarist to the band?
As so often, it's a big coincidence. I mean, we played a full tour with Phil last year when we did an orchestra tour where we played, all across Europe. Bunch of my classical stuff from my solo albums, and also some accept songs rearranged for orchestra. And on that tour, he was such a brilliant player that we didn't want to let him go after the tour. Basically, we thought, why couldn't we have him as an extra guitar player? Why don't we have to? Why not? There's no rule. You can't have 3 guitar players, and it works out great, really, because there's another lead player now on stage, and we can do twin harmonies, and he's also good on stage, live with the audience. So it's a welcome addition to the band.
Yeah, sure. I'm really looking forward to seeing you again, as I'm sure you are looking forward to actually playing live at some point. But we'll touch on that in a second.
About it. Hell yeah.
I just wanted to finish off about the album with the first single that you released, The Undertaker, which was a grower for me. I listened to it the first time and I wasn't hugely impressed, but having listened to it 3 or 4 times, it's really got its hooks in me. And I was watching the video when it first came out, which looked like quite a lot of fun for you guys to do. Who was behind the idea for that?
The production company of the video. We just wrote the song, and sent it to a company who did a brilliant job in interpreting it. They the way that it always works, they send you like their idea, their vision for the shooting, and they send you a little what do they call it? Can't think of the word now, but there's a word for it. So you basically get a visualization written out.
The storyboard,
script.
Is it?
Yeah, storyboard. That's
storyboard,
it. That's what I was talking. Yeah, and they did a fantastic. They actually filmed it in Poland in some deserted castle.
Yeah,
and it's nice and creepy. I like it. I thought really well done.
Yeah, it works well. So we were talking about playing live again, and obviously, like every other band on the planet, you've had to put everything on hold. I wasn't going to ask you about what you've got planned because we still don't know. But what from the new album? What are the tracks that you would really think these have got to go on the set list? Are there any that bursting out to that you definitely want to play live?
Yeah, I think the Undertaker is one, and surely Overnight Sensation seems to be a sort of a easy crowd song. Yeah, and then probably one or both of the opening tracks.
Sure.
Not sure about slow songs. Yeah, I mean, slow songs, it depends on the show. Sometimes when you play festivals, for instance, you don't really want to ever play slow songs. You want to keep the audience moving. But then maybe if we do a 2-hour show, surely The Best Is Yet to Come might be a good one. At the end of the day, we'll try them all and see how they roll down when we how they feel when we play them, really.
Yeah, sure. And of the last time I saw you, which was 5 years ago in London, you played, I think it was 22 songs, which is a pretty strong set.
Mm.
The night that I saw you, so it would have been the Blind Rage tour. So obviously you've got even more material to choose now. But you've got some tracks on your set list that obviously you just wouldn't not want to play, such as Balls to the Wall, Restless and Wild, Fast as a Shark, and stuff like that.
Yeah,
Is there anything that you either really don't want to play, but you have to play it because it's a fan favorite, or is there stuff you'd like to put in that you haven't as yet?
I mean, that's the age-old question. How do you put the set list together? And of course, the more albums you have, the more you've got to choose from. And I tend to be in favor of playing what most people want to hear, which is a lot of the classic stuff. So right now we have a set list of about 50% old stuff from the 80s and 50% new stuff from the last five albums. And that seems to be a happy medium. I mean, we could play more new stuff because we have great new albums that people love. Yeah. And a lot of fans like that stuff even better than anything. And a lot of fans will probably say, well, you can get rid of some of the old stuff. We've heard it enough. But then it's going to be an equal amount of fans who are going to be, they haven't seen us a million times yet. And I don't know. So however you do it, it's never going to be right. It's never going to be 100% right for everybody.
Yeah.
But I guess we're coming to the point where we can really think about dropping some of the older stuff even more out of the set list because we've got great new albums that people want to hear.
And I suppose you must have some fans who aren't even familiar with the stuff that came out back in the 80s. Some of the younger stuff will be picking it up from 2010 onwards.
Probably, yeah. But it's always hard to say, man. And then it's different from country to country too. So I guess it's you just use your gut feeling and experience, and so far it's worked really well. So I mean, it's a luxury problem to have, really.
Absolutely. So I've seen you play several times when you've been over in the UK. The first time was 1986 on the Metal Heart tour, and then the last time, as I said, was Blind Rage. So I've been around quite a bit. But one of the things that always makes me smile when I watch you live is what a good time the band seem to be having on stage. I've never seen anyone smile as much as you when you're playing. You obviously really enjoy playing live. Is that where you feel most comfortable, or what is it about playing live? Because I know that some musicians don't really enjoy it, but you obviously do.
Really? How can you not enjoy that? Especially when, I mean, you kick off a riff of any song, Princess of the Dawn, and the whole audience goes nuts. And what's not to like? If you don't like that, then what do you like? I don't know. To me, that's why we do all this. This is why we spend our countless hours in airports and hotels and even in the recording studio. I mean, the end result is always playing this stuff live. I mean, I enjoy making records because I enjoy seeing the songs taking shape and finally have a finished product. That's very gratifying, but it still doesn't compare to playing that stuff live. I mean, this is what it's all about. And I never understand. I don't understand people who are on stage and just stare at their shoes and seem to have a miserable time. I don't get it. I mean, to me, playing live is fantastic.
Sure. I was just thinking it was Mark Morton from Lamb of God who told me that he could spend every day in the studio, whereas he said Randy Blythe absolutely hates it and his natural environment is on stage. So it was just an interesting view, really.
Yeah. I guess it depends on your personality and the preference in life. I mean, it's just like, I guess we're all different creatures.
Indeed. Yeah. So 41 years since the first album, do you now feel, and to be honest, you look fitter now than you were probably back in 1981.
Thank you.
Do you feel like one of the elder statesmen of heavy metal these days, or do you still feel?
Hey man, we're just getting started. We've got another 41 years ahead of us. I don't know, elder statesman. I don't feel that way. I still feel like I'm having a blast. I'm still feeling like I'm in the middle of it all. Brilliant. And I actually do. I actually do feel the best is yet to come. So this song actually, it's just not a catchy little phrase. It actually means a lot to me because I actually do believe, yeah, we're still in the middle of it, and next year, and it might be awesome. You never know. I mean, I honestly think that. So I don't know, I cannot understand how people sort of live in the past so much sometimes. Some musicians always think about the glorious days of the 80s, and they constantly seem to live in the past. I don't get it, man. I'm here, and I think I'm like to live in the present and in the future.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Because the best is yet to come. So that's my honest opinion.
Hope. And keeping yourself in shape, you obviously you look very fit. So I'm assuming that is not just genes. There is a bit of hard work in there. When you're on the road and stuff, do you and the band, are you focused on keeping in shape?
I do to a certain extent, but I have to admit that I have my lazy moments and not always as inspired as I should be, because I know what it takes. Yeah, I try to do my exercises and such, but I'm not a religious fanatic. I mean, no. But, I'm trying to watch what I eat. I try to, not eat crap and get my exercising in when I can. But I take it with a grain of salt, too. I'm not, like I said, not a fanatic about it.
Great. And my final question, which is just something I often ask, is I'm always interested to know what people that are making such great music at the moment actually listen to when you're not doing your own composing and stuff. Is there anything these days? Do you listen to a lot of new stuff? Do you have your old favorites? What do you listen to?
That's very, very easy to answer. I listen to nothing. I actually don't listen to much music. It's odd. I enjoy a bit of silence too often. Even when I'm on traveling or when I'm in the hotel room, I don't turn the TV on all the time. I don't listen to music on my iPhone or whatever all the time. Some guys in the band do, but I just don't. It's just I don't need it in my life, to be honest. I'm quite happy without it, and especially when you're making music yourself and don't really need it for inspiration or anything. And if ever, I mean, I listen to classical music that inspires me or interests me a bit more than contemporary metal or whatever. It's just not. I don't know. It's just.
No, it's fine.
It's always been that way. Yeah.
Sure. So just to finish off, the album comes out in January. And there are a number of packages available for people to buy. And I noticed from your Facebook page the other day that a lot of the stuff is already sold out, some of the pre-orders.
Cool, huh? They even bring back cassette tapes. Can you imagine? How cool is that?
No. Brilliant.
I mean, you still have a cassette player. That's amazing. But I guess people rediscover this old technology. Go figure.
Indeed. Well, can I just wish you, not that you're going to need it with the way it's going, but all the best with the new album. I hope that the world does turn around a little bit for you and countless other musicians to actually get back to doing what you're doing. And wish you all the luck and hope to see you on the road at some point.
Thank you, my friend. It's been fun talking to you. And let's hope for better times ahead, huh?
Okay. All the best, Wolf. Take care.
Sure. Bye.